Hi, I'm Marla Niederer from OrsinisAngels, and today what I'd like to share with you is how I created this miniature painting. I took a trip to Providence, Rhode Island, and we actually went on a gondola ride. So it was really kind of fun, and there was a lot of really cool architecture and things like that. So I thought I would do a little miniature watercolor painting, and if you wish, you can join me and follow along. And predominantly it's all watercolors, and I used a graphite pencil, and I think that's about it. So we'll get started. So I'm going to start out using a number, a 0.3 mechanical pencil, but you can use whatever pencil you prefer. And what I liked was I have a little mark here from when I cut the watercolor paper, but I'm using Arches, and it's cold press, so it has texture. And I'm just going to kind of draw in the canal. And it's not going to be identical to the one that I did previously, and that's okay. I find it really difficult to do things exactly the same each time. And so I'm going to take a little artistic license and kind of go from there. But, you know, it gives you a little bit of perspective, because it's, you know, wider as it gets closer to you. And I think I'll just start with the gondola. It was fun. There was so much to see and do there. If you ever go to Providence, Rhode Island, make sure that you take some time to visit the museum there, the art museum, and it's the School of Design, Rhode Island School of Design, and it's just incredible. So block out a good enough amount of time to do that. And when you're doing a figure like this, you know, it's just going to be really minimal. You're not going to really have a lot of detail. So, and that's okay. And I do use, which I don't have right here handy, but I typically have a little Tombow, and that makes it easier for erasing things when you're doing things very tiny. And I think I'm gonna do the arch here. And there was you know, buildings alongside of the canal, and it was really kind of cool. It was I've never been to Venice, so I thought it was really cool to actually go on a gondola ride. And the person driving the gondola, or steering the gondola, was gave us a lot of information about the area, and it was just a really nice experience. And then you had a lot of really nice I think the light was on this side, but anyway, I think it was higher. one thing is, you know, if you have pencil marks, once you put the watercolors on, it's going to stay. So make sure you don't leave pencil marks. You don't want to be visible when it's said and done. And I'm just kind of drawing in the greenery. And there was some, this was a statue. And I'm just going to look at that a little closer, how I did that. And it's just, you know, gives you the impression. It doesn't have to be totally accurate. You know, it just kind of gives you, and this was a building. And then there was a building in the background. And there were buildings on the side, but it's such a small painting, you're not going to see all of it. And it's not identical to what was there, but close enough. And you know, the whole purpose is to kind of do something precious, not necessarily perfect. You know, it's just kind of a good way to have a memory. And it's so much nicer than a photograph. Kind of remembering something that you did. You kind of remember the day and when you're painting. And it's fun to do it on site, but that doesn't always happen when you're traveling with other people that are not artists. So I tend to use Escoda brushes, and I have some that are sable, that are travel brushes when I travel and when I go places, you know, kind of painting. And I've used the Kolinsky sable and also the Versatile. And the Versatile is quite nice for a synthetic. It's really, they really know their stuff. So I think I'm going to start out with the sky, and I'm just going to wet where I'm going to put the sky before I add the color. Okay, and I think the color that I'm going to use is for the sky. I think I will use a Prussian blue, and this is Daniel Smith. I'm also using some Sennelier colors. Excuse me. And I'm just going to kind of add that in. And then I'm going to add some more water to bring it down. And to outline the buildings. Okay, and this is a little darker than the original one that I did, and that's okay. It does dry lighter, And then I'm going to add, I think I'm going to go with the sides. And what I used was, I think I used a Sennelier burnt sienna to start out with. And just adding it in. And then there was some on the bottom. There was variation in color. So a lot of art and a lot of things to do if you go to Providence. It was really quite a fun trip. And I'm just going to kind of soften it with a little water. And I'm going to add a little bit of that in the boat. And this is such a relaxing way to spend some time. And they make really nice gifts if you like to do something tiny, and they're quick, so they're not overwhelming. And I forgot the greenery over here. And what I usually do is like layers. So I'll probably go back in and do some more layers. And I think in my original I left a little bit more white, so I might dab a little here and there. And when you're using arches, you could always pick things up with your brush. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of blue to the gentleman. I'm using Phthalo, Sennelier Phthalo cyanite blue for his shirt. Probably should have gone with a smaller brush for that. I think I will do that. I'm going to pick up some of that color. And I think I'm going to go with a indigo to start out with for his pants. And I'm just kind of making the impression, not really. And I'm going to use the indigo, and this is Sennelier. I mean, you can use whatever colors you like. They don't have to be the same, but I'm just sharing what I'm using. And again, this is just an impression of the boat. So it doesn't have to be exactly, and I'm pulling away some of the paint because I thought it was a little too dark to start out with for the first layer. And just adding a little bit into the water. And I think I'm going to add a little Payne's Gray for his hair. And I'm going to go back with the indigo and just add a little bit more here. And a little bit deeper color here. And a little deeper here. And this brush is a size 2. So, I mean, use what you have. You don't have to rush out and buy new brushes, but I think I got a little bit more in the building than I wanted. So the nice thing about the Arches paper is that it does take layers well, and you can usually lift pretty well with it. So I think I'm going to go in with a little bit of the Payne's Gray. I just dipped my brush in the wrong color, and now I have it in the Payne's Gray, and I think I'm going to kind of go in under the bridge here. And then just add a little water and pull it down. And I'm going to go in with a little bit more down here. And use a different brush with just a little water to kind of bring it out. It was a beautiful sunshiny day when we took the gondola ride. And he actually, when he went under one of the bridges, he actually sang to us. It was kind of cool. And I may not be doing this exactly like I did originally. I'm just doing a little artistic license here. But this again, this was the, I think I dipped my brush into the indigo instead of the Payne's Gray. That's okay. Just kind of bring it out a little bit. And a little bit up. There. And I did have a little bit of the Sennelier burnt sienna, and I mixed it with a touch of the Payne's Gray. to darken it a bit. And I added that up here. A little bit more up here. And this is still pretty wet. So and that's okay. But you can see, I mean, the canal was here for a long time, so you could see the age of it. And I think I'll have to go back when it's a little drier. And put a little bit here. So this is drier and it's a little easier to give your okay. And then I think I'm going to add some of the indigo blue for the windows of the building. And just kind of short little impressions. I'm just adding a little water, and then I think I'm going to just dab it there because they were really dark and I really didn't want them that dark. So I'm going to make sure this is dry, and it is. And I'm using some of that mixture of the burnt sienna and the Payne's Gray, and I'm going to start adding a little detail of our sculpture here. It was really beautiful to see everything there. And I'm just going to add in a little bit of the burnt sienna. Give it more of a rosy hue. And I add a little too much, so I'm going to try to pick some up and just touch and add a little bit there. And I'm going to go in with a larger brush. This is a size 8. Now the brushes, if you use different brands, they don't have like a standard size, so it just depends on the size you like to use. I like the round brushes, and it tends to tip, so you can use a larger brush to do a miniature painting. And I'm just kind of adding in some more greenery. Give it a little interest, because there was, you know, difference in the lighting. And I might soften it a bit with a little water. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the burnt sienna, mix a little bit more into that Payne's gray. And then add a little bit of that on the sides. And a little bit of water, kind of pull it out. And then a little bit on this side. And if you notice, I'm doing the side-to-side thing because that's, you know, showing the water. And I'm going to add a little bit more of the sienna, but I think I'm going to do it with a smaller brush. This is a size 2. And then add a little bit of water. You don't want the color to be flat. And then I'm going to add a little bit on this side. Now that it's dry, you could see the aging in the canal when we were on our trip. And you get to see a different view. I'm adding a little bit of the indigo now of the city, and it's a very walkable city. And I'm going to add water to soften that up. And I think I'm going to go with a little of the blue up here. And then I'm going to add a little bit more of the phthalo-cyanine blue to the shirt. But it's a little too intense, so I'm going to kind of soften it. And then pick it up. I didn't like that there. And I think I'm going to use a little bit of the sepia, because he was, you know, he had some ores in the water. And I think I'm going to use a little bit of that in the boat. And a little of the sepia along the canal. And give it that little aged look. And then a little bit up here. And a little bit of that phthalo cyanine blue. And then maybe add a little bit of Payne's gray. And I'm going to add a little Payne's gray up here. And also add in the lights. And I think I'm going to add my tree. I really didn't like that color in the tree, so and then I'm going to add a little bit underneath the canal, the bridge. And I'm going to add another layer. See how it's really coming out quite different than the original, and that's okay. But it's getting the impression of being there. There was a lot of, you know, it was in the summer when I went, so there was a lot of greenery. And I'm going to go back in and just, I think, dab a little. And we're almost there. I'm going to add a little bit more indigo to the figure. And a little bit more Payne's Gray. I don't tend to use black very often. I go more with the Payne's Gray just because when it's so small, I'd rather not. And I'm going to go in with some of that mixture. That's the burnt sienna with a little Payne's Gray. And a little water. And a little bit more Payne's Gray under the bridge. And sometimes I like the unpredictability of watercolors. So I'm using some of the phthalo blue. And I probably didn't use that color originally. It's a lot brighter than the one I originally used, so I think I'm going to dab a little bit of that. And it's all good. I mean, it's all practicing, and part of the beauty of doing these little tiny paintings is that you're having an opportunity to practice, and if it doesn't come out exactly like you want, you can just do another one. You really haven't lost a lot. And I think I'm going to go in with a little Payne's Gray on the top. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of Prussian blue. I think I'm going to leave the water alone at this point. And I'm going to take a little sepia and go back for the tree. And a little bit more here. And then I think I'm going to add a little bit more detail into the figures on top. And I kind of like the colors. I did go a little differently with these colors, and I kind of like that. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of sepia into the greenery, but not quite as in depth as that. I wanted to go a little lighter. And I'm going to add a little bit of that to under the bridge. This is the sepia. Kind of like that. And I'm going to use a touch of the Payne's Gray and kind of go around the light just a little bit. So you see a little definition there. And then add a little water. And I think it's not identical, and that's okay. This is the burnt sienna, and I think I might add a little bit of that under here. And what I'm going to do is just kind of go back, see if it's dry enough to do that. I added a little bit of marks and just graphite along the foliage. It's a little squiggly. And just a little detail on the figure and the building in the background. And I broke my pencil. There, and I think what I will do is sign it. I'm going to sign it with a little fountain pen that I have. And this is just my initials because it's too little to use anything bigger than that. And I think we're done. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you for watching my video, and I hope you're having a creative day today. So I will talk to you soon. Bye now.